All right, I'm going to do video. I'm going to do video. Let me stop this right quick. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what they call, this is the traditional recording studio signal flow for how almost all commercial studios, how they record. Now this isn't the case for modern recording in today's setting, because most people are recording, they're connecting directly to their interface, which is then is USB or whatever, connected to their PC or Mac, and they're recording directly that way. But I'm just going to show you the traditional commercial studio signal way, so if you ever go into a commercial studio, you'll understand how they're recording. And this is pretty much how, if you go into any recording studio, this is basically how they're recording. The musicians, the vocalists, and so forth. Now, in my house, it's just a house. This is just a bonus room. I don't have no big gigantic live room and so forth. I just don't. It's because it's a house. But I'm going to show you, based on how all the gear in here, I'm going to show you, if you walked into a commercial studio, how the signal would flow from what they're going to record, whether it's drums, a guitar, bass cabinet, or whatever, vocalist, how it's going to route into a digital audio workstation. Like I got my DAW set up. So I'm going to show you the traditional route. So here we go. This is how the signal would flow. So basically, I'm going to start. Now, I don't have like I said, I don't have a live room. I just have everything in my bonus room. So my bonus room is technically my control room says live room, because it's the way I record. But I'm going to use my other room. Let's say you walked in here. Let's say I'm going to pretend. Let's pretend this is my live room where my drums are for now. So the drums will be in here. So what normally would happen is there would be a panel of cable connections that the drums or whatever's going to be being recorded in here can literally plug into that panel. So if you're going to record your drums or guitar or whatever, that would be in here. Then those cables, those panels that would be on the wall somewhere or whatever in your live room, will be hardwired into the control room. Let's say this is my control room over here. So it would come into, it'd be hardwired to the patch bay. But since I don't have it wired that way, I'm going to show you here. I have a XLR patch bay I'm using as a patch panel, like a panel that you would see in any recording studio in the live room. Everything's plugged to that. So my keyboard rig here, all my keyboards are coming to a mixer. So I'm going to start this little drum thing that I had going when the video started. I'm going to start it again. So all these keyboards and stuff are plugged to a mixer, and that mixer right there, the output is coming into that patch panel, and then from the patch panel it's going into the patch bay. So all your live room recording stuff would go to a patch panel. That would then go to the patch bay. Like for example, this microphone that I got right here, the cable is running from the box, the power supply box there, and that's going into the patch panel. That is, all those at the back of those are then coming into the patch bay here. So from there, what's happening is What's happening is from the patch bay, and I got a video on how patch bays work, so that's a different video. But what's happening is it's coming from the patch bay and it's automatically routed to this patch bay into the console, to the back of the console. So those drums that are coming from that keyboard, because I have it automatically wired on channels 7 and 8 here, there's signals on channel 7 and 8 of the mixing console. So if I unmute these, it is now coming into the console. You can hear it through the speakers. Now you may ask yourself, why don't it just come directly into the mixer? Why does it have to go through the patch bay? Why don't you just plug it directly into the mixer or directly to the interface? The thing is, when you set up like this, you have a lot of options to do it that way. But the point of it is for monitoring. Zero latency monitoring. That's the reason why I have it that way. Also, it gives me the option to plug in external outboard gear as well. So what that allows me to do is, if I want to input some processing along the way, it allows me to do that. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm grabbing these patch cables and we'll patch in for example, I'll patch in these compressors here. So maybe I want to use those compressors as part of my processing to control dynamics on the recording. So what I would do is come from the output of my live room. Instead of going normal to my console, I'm going to redirect the signal. I'm going to redirect the signal from the patch bay into those compressors. Then that's going to reroute into the console, then to go into. So I'm going to come out and I'm going to plug in okay, and I'm going, so now I got one plugged in, so there's signal there into the compressor. You see the needle moving. So now I need to continue, I need to do the other one as well. So I'm going to patch in the other, and that's going to go into the other compressor. So we're going to, so now I got both compressors receiving signal. So, but I need to bring it back out of the compressor, back into the mixer. So I'm going to and let me get one more because I grabbed a short patch cable. I need to get one more long one. So okay, so I'm going to grab one more long patch cable. Let me put the camera down for a second. And okay, and I'm going to patch in this other Okay. So now I'm going to grab another patch cable and it's going to come out for that other compressor. So now that compressor, these compressors, and then allows me to set, I can set my settings on my compressor here, how I want to set my tack released, or however I want to set it, whatever ratio and everything, how I want to set it. So now I can hear this compressor. I'll be able to hear this compressor. So now I've got that compressor in my chain. That's the reason why you would do that. Why it would go to the patch bay instead of coming directly to the console. Allows you to patch in gear when needed. So I'm going to stop this drum beat. I'm going to stop this drum beat. So now naturally you would have a variety, like I'm gonna turn these ADATs on. Naturally you would have a variety depending on, okay, so now depending on, from there it's going to come from the patch bay into the console for monitoring, but it also allows you to route and patch in outboard gear as needed. So if you want to route in a compressor or maybe an EQ or whatever you need to do in your source, gives you that option. This is done in almost every studio. So now, what I'm going to do now is I am going to show you from there the recordings into your recording source. Like if I wanted to go into my ADATs, I could. Or if I want to go into my hard disk recorder, which I could. So by default, I'm going to, let me come over here, and I'm going to set up a session here, since everyone knows Cakewalk is one of my favorite ones. So I'm going to delete that. All right. So we're gonna Control T. I'm just gonna record. I'm just gonna set up some blank tracks. And since on my patch panel, since 7 and 8 is defaulted to my mixing console for my keyboards, I'm going to make the input source 7 and 8. Then I'm just going to redirect it where I want it to go into the console. So I want maybe those to go to channels 1 and 2. So I'm going to set it there. So now, all right. So now I'm going to disconnect these because I'm not going to use these compressors. So I'm going to take them out of the patch bay, take them out of the mix. So I just wanted to show you that for that very reason. So what's happening now is, let's say I start that again, because it's wired from my patch panel to come to my patch bay here, is normal automatically to my console, and then from my console is directed out. So I got it directed out into another patch panel, another patch bay here, which is then going into the interface here, the Antelope. So when I start that signal, all I'm going to do is I'm going to arm this track, which I do have it armed. I can turn it on, and I got it armed. So now it's ready to see the signal. So I'm gonna start this little drum track again, this little drum beat. Okay. It's now coming from, it's directly coming from the patch bay into the console for monitoring. So I'm monitoring, listening to the monitors, what I'm about to record. From there, the direct out is going into the interface through the patch bay, because it's wired. The inputs of my interface is going to the patch bay, and then the outputs of my interface is also going to another patch bay. So the outputs, so what's happening is it's going into the input patch bay for recording. So I can record into my DAW, all right? So because of that, there is signal here. So I am ready to record this, because there's signal there that's going into my interface. So I can record. And that's the signal flow, right? But there's also, let's say I want to use by default, let's say I don't want to use the interface. Let's say it was going to go into a tape machine or whatever the case. So I'm going to stop this. In the old way, what would happen is with tape machines, it would still do the same thing. It would go from your live room into your console, and then from out of your console, it would patch bay. It would be wired to your tape machine, like a 2-inch tape machine or whatever. Since I have ADATs, that's my tape machine. So I can, but this time, because my interface is wired to my patch bay, from my console from my console through my patch bay to my interface, that's how I normally have it set up. Because the ADATs or my hard disk recorder are optional. So I would have to, I got those on a different patch bay. So if I want to record the signal into my tape machine instead, I would have to wire it in. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll grab 2 cables again, and let's wire into the, I'll come out, and so I'm gonna put the camera down one more time, because I have to hold the camera and connect the stuff. So I'm going to or better yet, let me see here. Make sure. So let's say I was going to record to my 24 track hard disk recorder instead of recording into the DAW like you just saw. Same thing, I'm going to start the beat. I got signal. It's coming into the console, I can hear it. All right. Well, let me see here. So, okay. So, because I have a controller here, let's say I was going to record the tracks 3 and 4, so I can use my controller and I could just arm it, and now because I got it patched in, coming from my live room, I got it patched in here, which is now coming to my hard disk recorder for recording, as you can see there. So now I'm ready to record to my hard disk recorder. All I got to do now is just hit the play and record, and it'll record to a hard disk recorder. Same concept, right? And then I can still monitor what I'm recording because I'm listening through the console. Makes sense? So I'm going to stop it. So to end the video, so what would happen is once I recorded, whether I record to my DAW or record to a hard disk recorder or my ADATs or whatever the case may be, the outputs of those machines, whether it's my ADATs or my hard disk recorder, would then come back. I would patch it in. I can still hear it through the console. And then when I hear it through the console, I can still use outboard gear, patching outboard gear like I did when I was showing you with the how I would patch in those 2 compressors on the way in. So I can use the outboard gear to process for recording. I can also use the outboard gear to process for mixing. And so once everything's recorded through the DAW and it's coming through the console on these channels here, I'm ready to start doing all my levels and setting my EQ and everything else and patching in outboard gear to mix. Or if I'm recording DAW, I can also use plugins if needed through the DAW. But if I was using a hard disk recorder or my ADATs, only thing I can only depend on would be just outboard gear. And the old way, that's what they did. They recorded to the tape machine, and then once they got done recording the tape machine, they would come back to the console, and then they would use any outboard gear that they deemed needed for processing, for mixing. With DAWs, you have an option to use an external mixer like this, or you can use the mixer in the DAW and just use plugins. It's basically the person's choice how they want to do it. But that's typically the general signal recording flow, or for recording. The only difference, most people just aren't using the console, patch base, and outboard gear. They're mainly they're going directly into their interface, into their DAW, and just using plugins. But this is the traditional way it's done in commercial studios. This is the traditional way. So next video on this, I will actually record. I'm going to record tracks so you can see, actually physically hear things being recorded. How I would mic a guitar cabinet, and how it record the bass and how it record everything and let you hear it. That's going to be in the next video. But that's going to do it for this video. I just want you to get the idea of your typical commercial studio signal, your commercials recording studios signal recording flow. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching.